the number of government U-turns, because the number of government U-turns that we have seen are not only incredible in their number, because we saw Jeremy Corbyn forced Theresa May into a whole number of U-turns, but it's the speed. In some cases, there's a U-turn within hours and sometimes minutes of the policy being announced.
Yeah,
because the wave of frustration and anger that then swamps the government, because yet again they have no idea how the public are thinking.
Yeah, and can I just say that the latest one, we mentioned pings earlier, the latest one is about the pings, in that Paul Scully, business minister, government business minister, a couple of days ago, came out in the morning and said that people should ignore pings from the NHS COVID app. If they're pinged saying they have to self-isolate, they should ignore that. He essentially said that in the morning. There was such outrage about that that by the afternoon, 10 Downing Street issued a statement saying that people shouldn't ignore pings and they should or must self-isolate. So it's just yet another U-turn. And, you know, there's a strong suspicion, at least, that that was all planned. You know, that they pushed him out there to tell people, ignore the pings. Loads of people will hear that. Not everyone will hear the retraction.
Yeah, and Keir Starmer actually made an extremely interesting and valid point in Prime Minister's questions yesterday, when he said it was interesting how the three government ministers, including Boris Johnson, who'd been pinged, all happened to be on their country estates at the time. So it wasn't like they were inconvenienced. They're at home surrounded by their swathes of wealth when suddenly they announced to the public that they'd been pinged. Interesting that they probably were pinged when they were doing their jobs back in Whitehall in Downing Street, but they decided not to tell the public until they were home on their country estates. Why don't the public wake up to this type of stuff? Do you know what I mean? It is frustrating. And you're absolutely right.
And of course, they Johnson and was it Sunak?
Yeah.
The other one stated that. Oh, Gove. Sorry, Johnson and Gove.
Sajid Javid.
Sajid Javid, who was tested positive, and it was Gove and Johnson, that had been in close contact with him. Hence, they were pinged. And of course, they immediately said that they were going to ignore the pings because they were part of some special pilot. You know, they were on some privileged pilot program that meant they could ignore being pinged and wouldn't have to self-isolate. And of course, fairly quickly, you know, they realised that that wouldn't go down at all well with the public, who would be rightly outraged about that notion. You know, and say once again, it's one rule for them and another rule for us. So again, that's something
who
that
advises them, Tom?
rode back and said they would self-isolate.
Who's whispering in their ear? Who's saying blame it on the pilot? Who is saying? Because all week they've been questioned by innumerable presenters on different TV stations saying, when are the rest of us going to get on this pilot? And they just say, oh, when the time is right, we'll make an announcement. And they're saying, well, we haven't got the time. Why can't you tell us now? Oh, you know, I can't do that right now. It'll come out in good time. When's good time? And this morning, and there's a particular one, where Kwasi Kwarteng, or whatever his name is, 14 minutes. It was just embarrassing. He was shredded live on television. Absolutely shredded. They may as well have put him through a physical shredder for what he looked like when he was answering these questions. He was either making it up, he was repeating back what he'd been told by people in his ears to say, and it just made the situation worse and worse and worse. But let's look at some of these. There's some of these U-turns, shall we, Tom? I mean, I don't know if can you see it all right? Do you want to read some of these out, or just one or two out? If I go through them first.
You go ahead, pick out one or two for us there, Jace. It's a good article with that. Is it 8 different examples?
Yes. I mean, I don't know where to start, to be honest, because I think this is just examples of extremely quick ones. This is not the examples of all the U-turns either. This is just the ones that they've effectively done. I mean, the PM and Chancellor skipping self-isolation, as you just said. Around 8 a.m. on Sunday, Downing Street announced Mr. Johnson, Mr. Sunak, you were right,
Oh, it was Sunak, yeah.
would not be self-isolating despite being contacted by NHS Test and Trace after Health Secretary Sajid Javid tested positive for COVID. Number 10 said the Prime Minister and Chancellor would instead be tested daily as part of a pilot scheme. But little more than 2.5 hours later, and following a huge outcry, it was announced both now would go into quarantine. The news came just after Housing Secretary Robert Jenrick, so he was gaslighting the country live on television, while Sunak and Johnson had already been told and they changed their minds and were doing something else. Well, had a complete
you can imagine Jenrick. You can imagine these, these poor suckers. I mean, they're complicit, so I'm not going to. Poor suckers is the wrong word, but they reel out these underlings to go on telly and defend these appalling positions that they're taking, these appalling actions and decisions, and to try and defend them, which they do. And then there's a U-turn. I mean, it makes them look ridiculous. You can almost imagine them being told in there, this is the government's position and we defend it. It's the right decision. Oh no, hold on. No, I'm hearing it's the wrong decision. No, it's the wrong decision. We've changed it. We've now changed to what is the right decision. I mean, that would be hilarious, wouldn't it, if that actually happened in real time?
I think people are already doing that satire, to be fair, on social media, and it's brilliant. They're sitting in another room, aren't they? And they're basically advising through the earpiece. It's brilliant.
Oh, yes.
But they've rated these U-turns. You've got Supersonic, you've got Formula One, you've got U-turn speed, nippy hatchback, you've got U-turn speed, family estate, U-turn speed, nippy hatchback. So they've actually given them brilliant names. It's wonderful. People need to go on and read this. Back to Formula One again. But, it's just...
And there's big issues there, not just COVID related, but
yeah, of course, it's across the board.
Issues about race and society,
trade deals,
free school meals, so many things where they take an appalling position and then either just there's a public outcry or they are shamed, including by a 22-year-old footballer, shamed into realizing that their position is disgusting and verging on fascistic and murderous, and then they change.
Oh, because of just picking up there, just to finish off, picking up the 23-year-old footballer now, Marcus Rashford. What do? They get their mates at the Spectator to try and create a story, a complete non-story, saying he's profiting from his charity work in order to undermine him. Instead of listening to him, instead of thinking he's saying some great stuff here, we can learn from this. All they want to do is stab him in the back and create this public perception that he's like them. He'll never be like them. It's impossible to get that low, even if he wanted to.
I mean, absolutely despicable from the Spectator to attack him in that completely unfounded, unjust way. Totally despicable, disgusting.
Yeah.
This is a man, apart from feeding our kids and getting them, 80,000 kids have got their own books, through his partnership with Macmillan. How many millions of kids have had free school meals, including in the school holidays, when otherwise they'd be starving under this government because of Rashford. It's a man who gives all his wealth away. He's top of the Forbes list. He gives 125% of his wealth away.
He is, yes.
I don't even know how you give more than 100% away. But he's basically given to charity more money than he's got. I guess he's already pledged some of his future earnings. And they attack him as if he's trying to profit from things. What a joke. What a ridiculous joke they are at the Spectator.
Yeah. But of course, white supremacists, racist. That's the backdrop, unfortunately, for these far-right mags. So that's got to be part of the rationale. Oh, right.
They have a long history. The Spectator has a long history of racist content, including when Johnson was the chief editor.
Yes.
Articles. When he was editor, there was an article published suggesting that black people have lower IQs than white people, which is, A, disgusting, and B, scientifically proven to be utter hogwash.
Yes.
Racist hogwash. and yet he decides that's fine to go ahead and print an article like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know. And then he becomes Prime Minister.